This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
My name is Kristopher Bilbrey, and I am the host of two shows, a political podcast called Perception is Reality with Kristopher H. Bilbrey. It's a solo show. And then I am a co-host of another political podcast that is a live video cast and a podcast as well called The Bastards of Politics.
Hey, I'm Mike. Welcome to Podcast Diaries. These are the stories of podcasters who feel alone, just like you. Kristopher, how are you? It's nice to meet you.
Yes, doing well. It's good to speak with you. Good to see you, and doing well. Hope you had a good Christmas.
I did.
Happy
yeah.
holidays, and yeah.
Well, thanks for taking up some time. I appreciate you responding to some weirdo on the internet saying, "Hey, you want to talk about podcasts?"
Sure.
That was great. So, tell me about yourself, Kristopher.
Just out here in Midwest United States, live in Indiana,
Okay.
and doing the thing. I'm 40 years old. I'm a former police officer, former car salesman. Been politically active my entire life.
Those two things go really well together. Police officer
yes.
and car salesman. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of wild stories from both lives there.
Yeah.
But I was a drummer in a band, so I had a little bit of audio gear kind of knowledge.
Cool.
And kind of fell into the podcasting world. Never went to school for broadcasting, never had an interest in any of this. As a fan of politics and being politically active, I'm somebody that's listened to talk radio and whatnot, and kind of a fan of that.
Right.
And from there, I kind of fell into this backwards, but I've been podcasting in one form or another since 2017.
Wow.
So, it's been a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great. That's great. So, what got you into the political arena of podcasting?
So
that was a big sigh coming into that.
Yes,
sure.
yeah. So I come to it from the point of view. I obviously have a belief, and I am strong in my belief, and I definitely fall into a side of the spectrum.
Okay.
I don't come from it. I don't come from the angle of being just the news. I don't consider myself a journalist. I consider myself a political commentator.
Okay.
So I'm very upfront with my listeners and let them know I have an agenda, I have an opinion, and I am pushing that. I try to do that in as factual of arena as a way as possible. Using facts and information that I find. My goal is educating citizens on the importance of being active and involved, and first getting educated. And so that's kind of how I fell into it. I've been politically active at the local, state, and federal level for a very long time. I mean, I've got pictures of my family and I walking for candidates and working on election day when I was very little. So I kind of grew up into this.
Yeah.
But it was probably in 2015, 2016, I live in a big city in Indiana, and
Okay.
I moved to a smaller community and of only about 5,000 citizens. And it took me about a year to kind of get politically active there. And I went to the city council meeting, and I was the only citizen there for 3 or 4 months in a row. No one else was showing up. And I thought, there's a lot of stuff going on, and there are people in the community that's not being aware. So I went home, and at the time I did what everyone else did. I got on Facebook and I fired off a post. And the next day I woke up and 50 people had liked it and commented. And I thought, man, these 50 people seem to be interested, but they're not attending these meetings. They didn't know. So I started like doing what I would call blogging on Facebook. I used Facebook to write these long posts. And my brother, who lived in Houston, Texas, called me one day and said, "Hey, you've obviously got something to say. People seem to be interested. I don't know why. It's my brother telling me this, my younger brother.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
but people's obviously drawn to what you're saying. You need to stop writing this, and you need to do like videos or whatnot." And this was right around the time that Facebook Live came out.
Right.
And so I started making these Facebook Live videos of me walking around my yard. I'd always jokingly say, like, sometimes I'd be sitting in the house in my underwear and I'm just doing this Facebook Live thing.
Yeah.
And from there, it turned into doing, from there, I didn't just want to do that. I bought a microphone and I had to figure out how to connect the microphone to what I was doing. So I kind of fell into doing the podcast from there. And, it took a while, but kind of launched that was 2015, 16. In 2017, I officially launched an official podcast for the first time.
Wow.
I sat down and kind of hit the button and recorded and did what I did. And I did the old-fashioned, I didn't do video. It was just audio only for the first thing. And I've just recently started doing the whole video side of it when I connected with these other guys here this year. And so now that's a whole new side of it.
Yeah. So what do you prefer? Do you prefer the video or the audio?
Having done the audio for as long as I have, I mean, that's kind of my baby.
Yeah.
With this other group of guys that we do this show together now as kind of an ensemble. I'm the audio side of it, and then one of our guys is the video side. We have a producer that helps us and connects with us, and she's great.
Gotcha.
And helps keep us in track. But we both kind of just do our specialties and stay out of the other guy's way.
Yeah, I understand. I'm a big fan of audio. But I will say that for a show like yours, I would think that video would lend itself pretty easily. We do a lot of video here, but the audio portion I really like just for the storytelling aspect. I want to be able to get in your brain a little bit, and play the sounds and things like that. So tell me about these two shows. What's the difference? And give me a good and a bad on both of them.
Okay, so the Perception is Reality with Kristopher H. Bilbrey. Of course, it can be found on all major podcast hosting sites.
Sure.
My home link is perception.fireside.fm. And when you're listening to it's a monologue. It's me speaking. I open up the show and I'm talking, and it's generally about a 50 minute window of me talking, and it's kind of more me along the lines of talking to you as I use my experiences, because I understand that, I've got a good amount of listeners from where I live in my community and then outward in Indiana. But then I've also got listeners who live in Colorado or listeners who live in Florida. And I understand that laws are different from state to state, and what the commissioners do here, they might not be able to do in Kentucky.
Absolutely.
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
So what I try to do is I don't get so in the weeds of this is what's going on, technically speaking, in my area, but I use my experiences and what's going on to try to inform the listener of this is me, a citizen, getting involved. You have a right to request records. These are your rights when you're dealing with your local government based on what's going on at the state level or based on what's going on federally. And it's kind of just a citizen's guide to maneuvering through the political world, local, state, and federal.
Wow.
And so that's kind of what I use with the Perception is Reality. This other show, the new show, as I call it, The Bastards of Politics, I kind of call it a mix between maybe old school Glenn Beck, or for some of the younger audience, they might know Louder with Crowder, kind of an ensemble group feel. where we deal with a lot more national stories and deal with kind of like daily, the news stories that are happening.
Yeah.
Kind of with the old, plus some maybe Bob and Tom feel from the old school Bob and Tom radio show.
Yeah, sure.
Where there's a lot of laughing and kind of guys sitting around, kind of busting each other's balls a little bit, and kind of maybe kind of dad or guy humor in about the 40-year-old range. You know what I mean? Mixed in with politics.
I guess before everything got so super serious.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's great. That's a great take to have on politics, because it's tough these days to find anything to laugh about in politics.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so that's fantastic. That's great. So how did you meet these guys? Have you known them for a while, or?
Well, so yeah, one of the other co-hosts, Brandon. His name is Brandon Rudd, and he's been a friend of mine for 2 or 3 years. Okay. His wife had ran for political office, and I was supportive of them. And he actually had taken on a state official that he actually had to sue the state official to get access to be able to ask questions, because the official had blocked him and wasn't allowing him to communicate, which was a whole thing.
Wow.
So it was a big ordeal. Kind of my claim to fame, what happened back in November of 2017, I was standing up in a council meeting and I was arrested for speaking. Oh. It was an unlawful arrest. The prosecutor's office declined filing charges. I had filed a federal lawsuit as a result of it and came out victorious.
Wow.
In that fact. So that's kind of one of my big claims to fame, you know. A First Amendment advocate,
I guess they still got what they wanted. They got you out of there that day, huh?
They got me out of there that day, but it helped build my resolve, and it brought more people. It kind of made me a martyr more. Yeah. I think they thought they were going to turn me into the monster. Instead of they turned me into the martyr. And so it kind of backfired on them in the long run. But it was an interesting ordeal.
Well, I'm not sure which politicians are concerned about the long run anyway, so that's fine.
Right.
Well, that's excellent. So tell me, what is your motivation to do these shows? Because it takes a lot of work to do 2 shows.
Yeah, absolutely. It really does. And first of all, it's the fun that I have. It's the fun that I have when I want to sit down by myself and I've got something to say, and I feel like I say it in a way that people, it resonates with people.
Yeah. And
so far, I'm getting great feedback with the listener base, and so I like that. I like having fun with it. I always say, I did it when 35 people was listening, and I have a quite larger audience base now.
Yeah, sure.
I would do it again if 35 people were listening still. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
But really, the drive is. It really amazes me when I hear someone that contacts me and says, I'm 56 years old and I registered to vote for the first time this year because of your show.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I'm voting for the first time, or, I'm sitting around and my son and I listen to your show. My son's 17. He can't wait till he can vote. And it's opened up a political discussion in our home.
Yeah.
And, we look forward to listening to your show each week. And that really means a lot.
That's a huge motivational tool. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Good job. I mean, good for you, man. I mean, that's much better than, I like to hear myself talk.
Right.
So I don't think people understand. I did this for, I don't know, about a year out of my house, where it was just me. I don't think people understand how hard it is to talk for 45 minutes by yourself. That is a lot, man. And I was doing like movie reviews and crap like that, and so at least I had something to go on. For you, you are literally shouting into a void.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, and that's the thing. I've had a really fortunate run here in about the last 3 years where there's been a lot to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, you know, whatever's been
a
going
couple
on, it's
things.
been really crazy.
Sure.
But even locally, just where I'm at, we've had kind of a bizarre thing going on. Like in the city that I was born and raised in, and I now live back here now. You know, in the last 7 years, the FBI has been here. We've had a mayor that's been arrested and indicted.
Wow.
A bunch of the administration around him has been arrested and indicted.
Oh, no.
It's been a federal investigation called Operation Public Trust. People can look it up, read all about it. It's from Muncie, Indiana.
Oh my
So it's
gosh.
definitely an interesting ordeal. So I've had a lot to talk about with that. And so I've had a lot to go off of, but you are right. There have been times I've sat down and I've had a script ready to go,
Yeah.
and I've sat there to record on Sunday night and just thought, man, I'm not feeling it.
Mm-hmm.
And wadded that script up and thought, oh man, what am I going to talk about? Like, and then it's almost like, you know, I've heard John Lennon give quotes before, you know, when he say that he would sit down to write music, and sometimes it would just be like something from outside of him would click, and he would just go and write.
Yeah.
And he never knew what that was. And sometimes I will have talked to my producer at the end of the show and be like, I don't know what I just got done talking about. And I actually have to go back and listen, because I feel like sometimes when some of my best shows, I feel like I kind of black out in the middle of,
Yeah.
and it just takes over and it goes. And those generally turn out to be some of my better shows.
Blackout politics. Fantastic.
Yes, right.
So let me kind of switch gears a little bit here.
Sure.
So with your shows and with the amount of time you've been doing this, what do you think success is for you or for your shows? What does success mean? Like, do you reach a certain level? Do you get a certain sponsor? Do you,
yes.
you get enough people that say, hey, I voted for the first time? What is success to you on these shows?
That's a really good question, because you know, it's interesting. While I have a good amount of people that support and listen and love what's going on and watch, and if, for example, I'm sick or we miss a week,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they let us know when they're like, oh, where are you at? And we get those people that, you know, really get tied to it.
Yeah.
I also, because of what we're talking about, have a fair amount of detractors. People that are saying you're just being negative, or you're
That was my next question.
Because,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Yeah. And so you get the good with the bad. But one of the things that detractors always say is, you're just doing this for the clicks. You're just doing this for views. You just want to be YouTube famous.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it always comes back to me that when, you know, I'm not a news show, so I'm not just giving you just the facts, ma'am, just straight down the line.
Right.
I'm giving you my opinion, and I can look back at specific elections and specific points and say where I have made a difference. So I can see where my footprint has touched specific things, and you know, I have made a difference. The number one thing to me, I guess, always comes back to the amount of people that I feel get involved, or, you know, get invigorated to be involved. You know, the amount of growth, I guess. You know, it's not like I'm wanting to hit numbers like Joe Rogan. Wouldn't it be nice if we all had that? But you know, I'm also realistic, and I just think that the number one thing is just seeing the people who are get invigorated by, you know, my ideas and my opinions. And, you know, I know when I'm wrong. I admit when I'm wrong. I'm honest with my audience, and I try to have fun with them. You know, anyone can log on and watch C-SPAN. But it's boring, and everybody falls asleep, and nobody wants to watch C-SPAN. That's why no one watches it. So I try to give the same information in a way that is entertaining and educational at the same time, which is really hard to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that was another thing I was going to ask you about. You know, you mentioned scripts and that there's plenty to talk about here lately. How do you narrow it down to whatever your script contains? And when you say script, are you talking bullet points? Are you talking actual script, or what?
No, that's the thing with us. It's on Perception is Reality, where it's just me.
Mm-hmm.
I will, I'll have sometimes it's as simple as just having a title and knowing, okay, today I'm going to talk about, what happened to me when I was getting these records on this one incident, and I can draw that out. Hell, I could make it into 3 shows probably.
Yeah, sure.
But I talk about this one incident, and I just talk, kind of storytell from my perspective. So I really don't need to have a massive drawn out plan. I'm just recounting, a day in the life of myself. Right. But a lot of times I'm talking about, topics that I might have like bullet points, basically just to kind of keep me online, and I meander through there. On the other show, The Bastards of Politics, we tend to go more around the 1.5 to 2 hour mark.
Okay.
And so we've got the 3 of us that are on there. Yeah. So we pick out, and it's a weekly show. So we do basically, each one of us has 2 or 3 news stories from that week.
Right.
And it's just a topical news story from what's going on nationally. Right now, one of the big things that we've been talking about is all the Twitter dumps. Sure. That have been happening and we've all been listening and paying attention to. So one of our guys is, he's kind of like the Twitter correspondent, jokingly, and he's giving us all this information. And so we just are doing what's, topical in the news, and and give our spin on it. And
and with 3 folks there, I mean, you can do kind of a round robin thing, and not one person is having to carry the show the entire time.
Right.
I mean, that's why, that show sounds way more feasible to me than the one that you do. The one that you do by yourself, Perception is Reality, is that weekly as well?
Yeah. So it's really interesting.
He says with much reservation. Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Since we've been getting the other one up and running, I have been a little hit and miss with Perception is Reality.
I got you.
But when I first aired Perception is Reality, I was dropping episodes on Tuesdays and Saturdays.
Wow.
And I did that for a 1.5 years. And then I went to once a week.
That's a grind, man. That's a grind.
Yes, yeah, it really is. Ooh. Well, and on top of that, I was going live nightly, just on Facebook Live, for 45 minutes or an hour, 5 nights a week. Yikes. And so now I have, what I've done is
now it's like a vacation. Yeah.
yes. I've abandoned that, and now what we do is we do the weekly Bastard show that's like 2 hours, and then I do Perception is Reality, and it's more like once every 2 weeks now.
Right, sure.
And that's probably what I will do, because we're trying to mold everything into one network, kind of. Because the other guys have throw off shows as well.
Okay.
And so we're trying to bring everything under one umbrella, more or less. And I still get on the YouTube channel that we utilize and do lives there pretty frequently. So, we're all putting out content quite frequently. The other guys, they don't do so much live other than just our show. They do like recorded, they make videos and then post the video, like a standard YouTube video, rather than a live stream.
Sure. So, which do you prefer? You like the live streams over the recorded video?
Yeah. I just from the simple fact that I'm not a video guy, I'm not an editor.
Yeah.
I can do the editing, sound editing. I've got that down to an art.
Yeah.
And that's my area of expertise. But I like the live stream. Set it up and go. I always say that you always hear people say, you've got a face for radio. I take it a step further and say, and a voice for the silent pictures.
There you go. That's right.
It's not like I'm a massive like radio star and I'm, going live.
Right, sure.
I don't know why people listen to me. I feel like I'm really nasally, and I do all of that a lot. But I feel like if you make good content, people will come.
I will tell you this: the one thing that has changed over the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years is the voices. There are so many of them out there now that nobody has to be a professional radio star or have that big radio voice, that kind of thing. And so I think people can tell when you're being genuine, more so than anything. And they don't want to use well, no offense, but they don't want to use car salesmen, telling them what to do. So let me just ask you one more question. Doesn't really have anything to do with anything other than just me wanting to know and trying to. The whole idea behind this show is so that everybody that listens to it, whoever that's going to be, feels like they're not alone. Right?
Sure. I love it.
There's you sitting in your room doing this 14 times a week, and then there's another guy, 3 states over that's doing the same thing, and you both feel like you're doing it by yourself.
I love it.
And we just want to show some support. So give me an idea of hardware, software you use, hosting, stuff like that. Just give me kind of a rundown.
All right. So this is how much I don't know about what I'm doing, and it's amazing.
Okay.
So I'm a nerd for that stuff. I love it. I love getting on and watching. I just honestly, before we went live, I was watching a video about this guy that was, because we're getting ready to come together with the Bastards into a single studio.
Okay.
Right now, we're doing it from our separate homes.
Yeah, sure.
And so recording wise, I for the microphone, I always forget the number, but I use the Joe Rogan, the Shure SM, I think B.
That's why I wanted you to talk about it, because that's a very nice microphone I'm looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. Really nice So I love it. It's the best thing. I'll tell a secret. After I won the lawsuit in Winchester, I used some of that money because it was a pretty substantial award.
Yeah.
And I used some of that money to buy some of the gear that I needed, set it all up, took a picture, and sent it to the elected officials that were on the lawsuit, and I thanked them as honorary producers.
They didn't know how much they fueled you, did they? Yeah, that's amazing. No. That's great.
No, it's amazing. So I always heard, if you can buy middle of the range gear, middle of the road gear, and have to buy other gear in a year from now, or if it's something that you're really going to do, you can buy the gear that if you got the money for. So I spent money on the microphone. I use a Behringer mixer. I've got a 12-channel mixer. I had the mixer because I'd been in a band. So it's a little bit bigger mixer than what I need.
Yeah, sure.
But I have a Behringer compressor. And basically, I just feed all of that in, and it goes into my Mac, which is right here in front of me. I use Mac. I was never a Mac guy, never a Windows guy. I'm a Samsung, phone guy.
Okay.
So when I was doing this, I was like, everyone said, if you're going to do any kind of editing, video, audio editing, you need a Mac. So I bit the bullet. I went out and bought a Mac. And actually in my system, I run a Mac here and I'm running Windows here. And it's amazing how well I transfer back and forth from one to the other. But I use both of those setups there and then I just record into a Zoom H6 recorder.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I then take that and I put that the SD card in, and I use GarageBand to edit.
Yeah.
Edit for there.
Yeah.
And then I use the home base of Fireside, the podcast hosting Fireside, and I upload there. It shoots it out. Like I said, I'm on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Radio Public, iHeartRadio. Fireside shoots it out to all of that.
Yeah.
And so that's what I do there. As far as that's basically for perception. For the Bastards of Politics, I use all that same gear. The other guys are using basically the same gear. And then, right now we're using our webcams, and what we do is we use StreamYard.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I've used Zoom before, but I had to update it because it's been a while since I've been on it.
Yeah.
When I got connected with you, but we use StreamYard, which seems like it has. If you've never used that, you might check that out. It's pretty wild. I was really amazed with all of the applications that you can do there.
Yeah.
But basically, we can use that StreamYard, and it connects us to Facebook. It connects us to Twitch and to Rumble and to YouTube and to whatnot. So we're using that. But we're actually going tomorrow to meet with a guy for studio space, and then the video guy, he's the one that's in charge of all of the lighting, and he's got cameras and does all of that stuff. So we're gonna just kind of pick up what we've got, but we're trying to make it really uniform and do all of that. But I'm really a gearhead. I like gear that looks nice, and I like gear that sounds good, but I'm like, ooh, that's cool, and then I've got to like study and find out the name because I really don't know what it all is.
That's right. Yeah. No, you've got me wanting that microphone.
Yes.
I've wanted that microphone for a while. We put this studio together back in 2019. And went with the Rode NT1As and, of course, Rode mixers and things like that. And the microphones have served us really well, right?
Right.
And there is nothing wrong with these microphones. They are wonderful microphones. I've only had to send back a couple, and we've got about 12 of them, right? And I've only had to send back a couple. That's pretty darn good as far as I'm concerned, right?
Yes.
However, everyone that comes into my studio, they try to talk into the top of the microphone.
Yes.
And and so I'm like, I just need the ones they talk into the top of. Yeah, these are very directional, and you have to talk into the front of it. And so, plus those just look cool. So
right, it's always interesting to me. You can always tell when you get a new podcaster. I literally just watched a guy last night that I went to high school with who set up, and he's like live from this podcast studio where he's at, and it's his home.
Sure.
And he's speaking into the top of I'm like, dude, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
I didn't want to send that message to him, but I did finally shoot him a message, and it was like, hey, I just thought maybe I'd let you know if you tip it this way, it will do you so much better.
Yeah, so the difference is I'm speaking into the front of the microphone now.
Yes.
Now I'm speaking into the top of it. So you can definitely hear the difference here. And people are amazed whenever I pull this microphone up in front of their mouth, until I say, get it uncomfortably close to you. It'll be fine.
Right.
So, all right. Well, Kristopher, thank you so much for spending some time with me and just kind of giving me a rundown of what you do. One more time, give me your name and your shows.
Yes, sir. My name is Kristopher Bilbrey, and I am the host of Perception is Reality with Kristopher H. Bilbrey, which you can find everywhere and at the home link perception.fireside.fm. And then I am one of three co-hosts, myself, Brandon Rudd, Joshua Kimbrell, are The Bastards of Politics, and you can find that on YouTube at The Bastards of Politics, or it also is on all podcast hosting sites, and the home link for it, the audio home link for it is thebastards.fireside.fm. So you can find us everywhere. The best thing I would recommend is everyone check us out at YouTube, which is The Bastards of Politics on YouTube. And from there, it will send you everywhere.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Kristopher. We really appreciate it. Check out more Podcast Diaries and plenty of other shows at roguemedianetwork.com. If you have a story to tell, reach out to us. info@roguemedianetwork.com. This has been a Rogue Media Network production.